Welcome to Kathy on the Couch, your podcast for everyday clinicians who sit with grief, trauma, and the hardest human experiences every day. You weren't meant to carry this alone, and this is a space for therapists who hold space for others and sometimes need a place to be held too. I am Kathy, and I am your EMDR consultant, trainer, and thanatologist specializing in methods of death, dying, and bereavement. I created this podcast to support those who do the deep work, especially trauma and grief therapists and EMDR clinicians needing a soft place to land, who want real conversations, meaningful support, and a community where the hard questions are finally welcome. We also are thrilled to share and announce our Kathy on the Couch membership community, which is your home for grief and trauma consultation, professional growth. It's by therapists for therapists, where you find a monthly consultation group. You'll find a monthly NBCC CE training. You'll get access to a course module and resource kits. We're so happy to have you in one place, and you don't have to go looking for all those items in all the places. You can just come here. So we hold space for those who hold it all. That's our mission, where we talk honestly about all clinical challenges in the business of being a healer through curriculum development and training and breaking the silence to lead and thrive in the field without losing ourselves in the process. So, if you're looking to join for deeper connection, I invite you to join our membership community to help you learn and grow. Or if you're an EMDR therapist looking to be certified or a consultant, we have our program, EMDR University. Remember to give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcast. Now, let's get comfortable and let's head on over to the couch. Welcome back, friends, to Kathy on the Couch, your podcast for all grief and trauma clinicians. Today, we're going to talk about a phenomenon that most of us, know very well. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that shows up in professional training spaces, not the productive fatigue of genuine learning, the other kind. The kind where you've been sitting for 6 hours absorbing accurate information, doing everything that's asked of you, and somehow ending the day feeling less capable than when we walked in. So, not more. And so, if you felt that, you felt what Maria Montessori spent her career trying to name, not in the context of professional training. She was writing about children in the 20th century, and her central observation was that learners placed in environments that override their agency don't thrive. We all know that. I have children at daycare, and we see this operationalizing in their play, and they comply. It's one of the most critically precise descriptions of what happens in miseducative training spaces that I've encountered anywhere in the literature. And what she proposes the alternative was a carefully prepared environment where the learner's own drive to engage is protected and trusted, and it maps onto the neuroscience of learning with a precision still that, surprises me. So, I'm Kathy Couch, your EMDR consultant and trainer and the founder of Rewired 360. This is episode 3 of our 6-part series, Roots of the Revolution, Why Pedagogical Theory Belongs in Clinical Training Spaces. Last episode, we looked at John Dewey and the neuroscience of experiential learning, why information delivered in abstraction from learners' lived experience fails to encode, and what it means to design for genuine integration. So, Maria Montessori was born in 1870 in Italy. She was trained as actually a physician, which is interesting, and the first woman to graduate from the University of Rome School of Medicine. And her entry into educational work came not through philosophy, but through her clinical observation of children and her own experience with institutional settings. And the origin of her story matters for this series. She didn't develop her education really through, the various types of education that we are prescribed. It was from genuine agency in a carefully prepared environment. I've seen those Montessori schools and always wondered what they were. And then I began researching for the podcast and discovered what she observed. And it was, in retrospect, a neuroscientific finding. She just didn't have the language to find it yet, which I can so resonate with. If you've listened to my any of my adaptive yearning pieces, you kind of get it. And she watched the ventral vagal system come in online in children who'd been living in dorsal shutdown. She didn't have that language, but that's what she saw. And her concept of the prepared environment is, I think, one of the most underappreciated elements of her framework in adult professional education. And when
So, when she began her work, she began working with children who the medical and educational establishment had written off as uneducatable. And what she observed, and is worth sitting with, is that these children, when given the structured independence and carefully designed materials, demonstrated capacities that their own institutional environments had systematically suppressed. And the problem was not the children, it was the environment's refusal to trust them. And so she spent 5 decades developing what she called the prepared environment, which is the educational context designed not to deliver content to passive learners, but to protect the conditions under which natural learning could unfold. She wasn't a theorist writing at a removal from practice. She was a clinician educator building from direct observation, iterating across 40 years of implementation across cultures, age groups, and educational contexts. When we think about this educator idea, she argued that educators' primary responsibility is to design and maintain that environment which natural learning can unfold, and that's from her work in 1912. And the teacher steps back, not into absence, but into a different role: observer, guide, and curator of conditions. Now, being a parent, it's so hard to do this. I tried to do this in the pandemic, and it was super difficult. And I had my 3-year-old and my twins that were born on Valentine's Day of 2020, and I thought, I am not a stay-at-home mom. And I was trying to do these pieces, but it was just so hard. The prepared environment has several key features. It's organized to invite exploration, materials that are accessible, logically sequenced, sensory friendly, and it offers genuine choice within a learner coherent structure and communicates through every design decision that the learner is trusted to direct their own engagement. For adult professional learners, that parallel is direct. A training environment that's physically crowded, visually overwhelming, offers no meaningful choice about pacing or participation. One that communicates through a structure that the trainer's agenda overrides their need, really, she says, is unprepared in her terms, and it might be packed with content, but it's not designed for learning. The distinction is drawing not between rigorous and relaxed or structured and unstructured. It's between environments for convenience, for the convenience of content delivery, and environments for the nervous system and the learner. And those are very different design models. And here's where the polyvagal theory enters in the conversation, and where I think the connection between Montessori and contemporary neuroscience is most striking. Stephen Porges' polyvagal framework describes the autonomic nervous system as continuously assessing the environment for cues of safety or threat. And he calls this neuroception. I love it. It's in my grief map theoretical framework, which talks about the self of therapist and patient. And when the environment registers as a safe ventral vagal system, it supports social engagement, curiosity, openness to experience. But when we register threats, we shut down, or we go into dorsal vagal shutdown. So genuine learning, the kind that involves curiosity, exploration, and creative application of new knowledge, requires ventral vagal access. So it can't happen from this threat-activated state, and ventral vagal access is supported by specific environmental cues, physical comfort, predictable structure, social warmth, and that's the part that connects directly to Montessori, the experience of having agency over our engagement that reflected in Deb Dana and Stephen Porges' work. But agency is not merely a motivational preference, whether the learner can direct their own engagement, choose their pace, choose their application case, choose when to move and when to stay. Our nervous system registers something important. I'm not the prey. I am not the prey. And the experience of agency is a neuroceptive cue: I'm safe. And the absence is the opposite: an environment in which the learner's engagement is continuously directed, corrected, and controlled by an external authority and activates threat response. So a persistent misreading of her framework is the equation of self-directed learning with the absence of structure. And she was very emphatic that that was a distortion. Freedom was always in carefully prepared structure, not the absence of limits, but prepared in a coherent environment. This is such a good concept, but such a delicate balance. And I really love it. I really sometimes struggle with doing that with my own kids, but I love this. This distinction has a lot of implications for our own professional training and design. And our goal is not to eliminate structure, it's to ensure that Structure serves learning rather than controlling it. And a training that has clear objectives, coherent sequencing, that's well prepared, and the physical and relational environment, like Gagne, what he did on his studies in the brain. We know all those things, learning recall. But she's also giving the learner a sense of autonomy and genuine choice about pacing and application. And I love this. It's not, an alternative is not structure versus freedom. It's a question of whose needs the structure serves, the trainer's anxiety about coverage and control, or their need for safety, agency, and meaningful engagement. It's such a nuanced direction. Is it coming from the teacher or is it coming from the student? And I love this. And Ryan and Dacey's self-determination theory adds empirical weight to her observation. Their research identifies autonomy, competence, and relatedness as the three core conditions for intrinsic motivation, and demonstrates that environments that undermine autonomy don't produce nearly less enthusiasm, but measurable decreases in learning quality, creativity, and as a result, long-term retention, which is really what we want. And she observed this in 1912, and research decades later confirmed it. Structure is not the problem. Control masquerading as structure is the problem. And I think when we're, trainers, we want to have that sense of control, but also when we become balanced and free, we want to really balance that. And I want to name something I think that gets skipped too quickly in her informed training design conversations, especially when they happen in trauma-informed contexts. For participants with histories of complex trauma, that experience of genuine self-direction in a learning environment can be powerful, but also disorienting. Trauma survivors have organized their relationship to institutional environments around compliance. Learning through pain and safety requires submission to external authority rather than trusting in our own perception and agency. And so when a training environment offers that choice, that autonomy, that internal locus of control, this initially can feel unfamiliar, right? So they might wait to be told what to do or find it difficult to trust that agency is real, or feeling exposed by the invitation to direct your own engagement without clear structure. But trauma-informed trainers using this need to hold that complexity. The invitation to self-direction is clinically valuable precisely because it offers something different from what participants may have experienced in those institutional environments. That's what keeps them coming back. It requires explicit support, structure within the freedom, and an attuned trainer that makes safety, the offer of safety, legible and achievable. And it can't just be announced, it has to be demonstrated consistently over time. So through the line from Montessori to trauma-informed clinical training, it's shorter than what might appear. The polyvagal framework's insistent that physiological state is a foundation for engagement. The attachment literature's documentation of co-regulation is a medium of change. The somatic therapy fields insistent that the body must be included in the healing process. All of these converge on Montessori's core insight, that the environment's relationship to the learner's agency is a primary variable. Okay? And when we design training spaces that ignore their physiological states, that treat their poor clinical experience as irrelevant, that offer no meaningful choice or genuine freedom, we're designing unprepared environments in her assessment. And we shouldn't be surprised when the gap between training attendance and clinical behavior changes. There's something I want to name directly. Her invitation to trainers is not primarily an invitation to be less structured or more permissive. It's an invitation to be more honest about what structure is for. When we use structure to manage our own anxiety about coverage, to perform authority, to ensure participants can't deviate from our agenda, we're not providing safety, right? So, for nervous systems trying to learn, those aren't the same thing. She wasn't writing about trauma-informed clinical training. She was writing about children in Italy in the early 20th century. But her central argument is what we need to focus on is the environment's design supports or forecloses their drive to engage. And our job is to prepare conditions that fill the learner. And it reads more now like what neuroscience was trying to tell us is we got there through brain imaging and autonomic physiology. We ended up at the same place. So Coming up in episode 4, the polyvagal theory debate, what 39 scientists actually argued, what Porges responded, and what it means for those of us using polyvagal informed frameworks with clients. That episode sits a little differently in the series. It's a scientific debate, not a historical framework, and I think it belongs precisely here because of how we hold scientific uncertainty, and that's itself a pedagogical question. So if today's episode was useful, share it, pass it along to your training director, your clinical supervisor, talk about it in clinical supervision, talk about it in someone who designs education. You can look at the full written post with APA references at my blog, The Rooted Practice. And if you want to keep this conversation going, join us at the Kathy on the Couch community, where I go deeper, live consultation in a community of clinicians doing exactly what this kind of conversation is thinking. So the link is in the show notes. I'm Kathy on the Couch. This is your Rewired 360 podcast. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Kathy on the Couch, the podcast for everyday clinicians. We hope today's conversation has inspired you, sparked new ideas, and offered you practical tools you can bring into your own practice, whether you're just starting out in the mental health field or you are a seasoned clinician. We're grateful to have you as part of our growing community, and Rewired 360 is here to companion you along your clinical career path. From the moment you begin your professional journey, we offer comprehensive support and resources that guide you at every stage. So, our curriculum is designed to fill the gaps often found in the marketplace, providing advanced training, consultation, and mentorship as you progress in your journey. Visit us at the Kathy on the Couch community, the trauma community for clinicians, or the EMDR University community for EMDR clinicians. Be sure to check out our show notes for a full list of resources, and don't forget to visit our swag store at rewired360.shop. And this information shared on this podcast reflects perspectives and experiences of our guest hosts. It's not intended to substitute for professional consultation, supervision, or individual guidance. If you have questions about how to apply any of the concepts, we encourage you to consult with your clinical supervisor, consultant, or licensing board. As always, follow those research-based protocols and best practices in your work. We're here to walk alongside you as you deepen your clinical understanding. And until next time, keep connecting, keep learning, and keep rewiring for success. Take care.
Welcome to Kathy on the Couch, your podcast for everyday clinicians who sit with grief, trauma, and the hardest human experiences every day. You weren't meant to carry this alone, and this is a space for therapists who hold space for others and sometimes need a place to be held too. I am Kathy, and I am your EMDR consultant, trainer, and thanatologist specializing in methods of death, dying, and bereavement. I created this podcast to support those who do the deep work, especially trauma and grief therapists and EMDR clinicians needing a soft place to land, who want real conversations, meaningful support, and a community where the hard questions are finally welcome. We also are thrilled to share and announce our Kathy on the Couch membership community, which is your home for grief and trauma consultation, professional growth. It's by therapists, for therapists, where you find a monthly consultation group. You'll find a monthly NBCC CE training. You'll get access to a course module and resource kits. We're so happy to have you in one place, and you don't have to go looking for all those items in all the places. You can just come here. So we hold space for those who hold it all. That's our mission, where we talk honestly about all clinical challenges in the business of being a healer through curriculum development and training, and breaking the silence to lead and thrive in the field without losing ourselves in the process. So if you're looking to join for deeper connection, I invite you to join our membership community to help you learn and grow. Or if you're an EMDR therapist looking to be certified or a consultant, we have our program, EMDR University. Remember to give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcast. Now let's get comfortable and let's head on over to the couch. Welcome to Kathy on the Couch, your podcast for everyday clinicians who sit with grief, trauma, and the hardest human experiences every day. You weren't meant to carry this alone, and this is a space for therapists who hold space for others and sometimes need a place to be held too. I am Kathy, and I am your EMDR consultant, trainer, and thanatologist specializing in methods of death, dying, and bereavement. I created this podcast to support those who do the deep work, especially trauma and grief therapists and EMDR clinicians needing a soft place to land, who want real conversations, meaningful support, and a community where the hard questions are finally welcome. We also are thrilled to share and announce our Kathy on the Couch membership community, which is your home for grief and trauma consultation, professional growth. It's by therapists, for therapists, where you find a monthly consultation group. You'll find a monthly NBCC CE training. You'll get access to a course module and resource kits. We're so happy to have you in one place, and you don't have to go looking for all those items in all the places. You can just come here. So we hold space for those who hold it all. That's our mission, where we talk honestly about all clinical challenges in the business of being a healer through curriculum development and training and breaking the silence to lead and thrive in the field without losing ourselves in the process. So, if you're looking to join for deeper connection, I invite you to join our membership community to help you learn and grow. Or if you're an EMDR therapist looking to be certified or a consultant, we have our program, EMDR University. Remember to give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcast. Now, let's get comfortable and let's head on over to the couch.